Hey guys, so this video is going to be about some rules for writing, and then I'm also going to show you an example paper that you guys can look at to refer back to when you're writing your paper. Just some tips and some examples that you can look at to better understand what you're going to put in your paper. So let me share my screen. Okay. So you should already have your thesis done. It's in that outline. I've linked the outline worksheet in this Google Classroom post. So if you somehow forgot to fill that out, you should be filling that out because that is going to be really helpful. But you should already have your thesis filled out. So we want to look at this paper as kind of like a stool with 3 legs. So the top of the stool is what you want your reader to believe. So it's your thesis. And then that thesis statement should be supported by 3 different arguments, okay, providing evidence to support that thesis. So this is really a good visual to think about when you're writing your paper. I have written a example paper that I've linked in Google Classroom as well, if you want to follow along in there or just follow along in the slideshow, but you will have access to that through Google Classroom. So you'll notice that I've written it on Florence Nightingale. She is not one of the choices. Florence Nightingale, my thesis is Florence Nightingale should have her own chapter in a history book. And then I have an introduction to my arguments. Now I'm doing a little bit more than just listing, right? I'm not going into too much depth about what my arguments are, but for example, my first one is Florence Nightingale contributed to the overall war effort on the British side during the Crimean War, leading to British victory. You'll notice that I'm saying a statement there. I'm not going into depth and explaining the whole argument. That is what your body paragraphs are for. So my argument 1, I have it stated, remember, in that rubric and also on your outline. You are supposed to state it and then provide evidence and then explain. So I have my stated one: the condition of British field medicine was extremely unsanitary before Florence Nightingale started to create standards of cleanliness. Then I have evidence to support it. You'll notice how I'm citing the source. I'll talk about that in the next video, but you're citing your sources. According to history.com, her work reduced the hospital's death rate by 2/3. I'm not just, saying she reduced the hospital's death rate by 2/3. That would be plagiarism, right? Because I got that from my source, so I need to cite it. And then it's supposed to say explained here, but I explained the evidence by saying these soldiers were saved because she created a more sanitary working environment. This ultimately led to a stronger military force on the British side and eventually a British victory. So the important thing to remember is you state your argument, then you give evidence, and then you explain that evidence or explain more, okay? It shouldn't just be state and then evidence and then done, right? You should never end on a quote. You should always have something after it. Even if you're stating your argument in that first sentence and then you go on and explain a little bit more before saying your evidence, that works too, okay? But as long as you're not ending on a quote, okay? I have more arguments here. I have the example essay linked if you want to read through it. I'm not going to read through all of them, but if you do have any questions or you want to read through it with me, please let me know. I'll put a Zoom link in this post. So just let me know. Conclusion: you're restating your thesis. Like I've talked about before, you're not supposed to just like state it again, copy paste from the introduction. It should be a little bit different. So here I have history textbooks need to demonstrate qualities we want to see in future generations. Florence Nightingale demonstrates many of these qualities, which is why she deserves her own chapter. And then I just restate my arguments. Okay. Once again, you should not be copying and pasting it from the introduction paragraph. You've learned that in your English classes, I'm sure. So this should just be review. But I restate my arguments there in a little bit of a different way. So that is just a little quick overview of the example paper. Oh geez, is it doing this again? Okay, there we go. Sometimes it glitches out on me. But here we have our 3-legged stool filled out. on top, my thesis, and then my arguments. If you want to create this visual on your outline, that works too, okay? Or you can just use your outline paper, but I thought this would be a really good visual on showing how we're supporting that thesis with our evidence and arguments, right? And then I have on this post the example paper, like I said. Okay, so some rules to writing. When referring to a person in history, always refer to them by their last name, not their first name. So for example, Megan Grady graduated from high school in 2017. She then went on to attend St. Ambrose University. In college, Grady majored in history and minored in theology. You need to refer to them by their first and last name in that first sentence, and then anytime after that, last name, right? We're not on a first name basis with our historical figures here. Okay. Only write in numerical values when it comes to statistics or any number 10 or above. So for example, if your sentence has a number written fully out, example 27, then all of the other numbers you list must be written in the same way. Okay, so another example, if you write it as 150, 150, then all the numbers you list after that have to be listed as a number. Okay, so if you write it first, you have to write all the numbers after that. If you just put the numbers there, you have to put all the numbers after that. If that makes sense. Citations are required for any paper that you currently do not have prior to writing the paper. So if a piece of information is not considered common knowledge, you need to give credit to where you found that information. Okay. Direct citations should not take up more than 2 lines of work. Okay. So you cannot create a paper that is like one sentence of your own and then a bunch of 5 sentences of somebody else's work. Okay. You should just be summarizing that in a quote or 2. Do not use passive language. So for example, you should be using an active voice. So we have Sue changed the flat tire versus the flat tire was changed by Sue. We should be just using that passive language. Do not use the word I. Okay, self-explanatory. When restating your thesis and your conclusion, do not copy and paste the exact words from your thesis from your introduction. I went over that before. When writing a history paper, use past tense when appropriate. Okay, we're talking about things that happened in the past, so use that when you need to. Your thesis needs to be supported by 3 arguments. I went over that in the example paper. Okay, each argument needs to be supported by evidence from your source. Okay. When starting a new paragraph, you must push either the tab button once or the space bar button 3 times before writing the paragraph. Make sure that when you're writing an essay, to use the left alignment. The font of your writing should always be in Times New Roman 12-point font size. In that example paper, I have it formatted to MLA format, so please look at that for this or for reference. And then we will talk about citing a source in the next video. I'll end this.